Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you, everybody, for inviting me here, and thank you for coming. I have to time myself, because it's supposed to have already had 13 minutes. I'm going to tell a little bit about myself at the start, just so that you know what we do, and I'll come back to this slide later. This is what we do. This is our show in Frankfurt last year, the Light and Build. We basically produce mostly lighting, which we export. 80% of it is exported all around the world, and we do that mostly by trade shows. We now have distributors who sell to reps, who sell to showrooms. We sell in 500 different shops around the world, and we mostly do that through our distributors. We do a little bit of furniture, but mostly it's lighting. And I've taken these photographs of the lights in nature just to sort of tell that story of where we're coming from. This isn't just a product. It has a bit of background. It's got a little bit of New Zealand landscape in it, and we embed them in the landscape to tell that story. That's the theme of the show. So that's the coral, our most successful light, that first one. The second one is reed, taken up amongst the Toei up on the central plateau. Kina is based on the Kina sea urchin shell, which obviously lives in rock pools, so I sunk one in a rock pool and photographed it underwater. And nikau, which is our native natural palm. And I think it's really important when we go overseas that we're telling that little bit of story about the New Zealand landscape and why it's important to us. That's our basic product. That's mostly what we sell. The made-up light is actually bigger than the box there than you see. You can fit between 40 and 60 boxes of kit set in one box of made-up. You used to export to Australia with made-up lights, and it cost as much to freight as it did to buy the light, which is crazy. So we now redesign everything, so all our lights go overseas as kit set. And to tell that story of the kit set, we invented this logo called the seed system. Why put one tree in a truck to transport it from A to B when you could fill that truck with thousands of seeds and have fun watching it grow? And that second part's really key to it. It's about the fun of making it. It's been proven that if you make something, you keep it for longer and you love it more. So that's got to be good. And I do a lot of this. And essentially, this is really where it comes from for me. I've always been out. I love the wild places. That's where I go as much as possible. We had, sorry, I forget your name, from Boulder. This is up near your part of the world. This is Colorado, up above Aspen. And I also like to tell the story of nature. That's really important to me, and how we are affecting nature and what we do. And because I love nature, I care for it. And this is the kind of core of my story, really, is about caring. Because I think this is the essence of sustainability. That's our showroom in Hawke's Bay, in the little village of Whakatū. And within our company, we do a lot of things which I guess you would call sustainable. We do the usual things. We recycle everything. We have one wheelie bin a week, every 2 weeks. We use 100% renewable energy. We use sustainable materials, bamboo from China. We insulate our workplace and we heat it with underfloor heating from the 100% sustainable electricity. All our packaging is recycled cardboard. We commission life cycle analyses of our products so we can identify the hotspots and reduce our effect on the environment as a result. And the first one obviously was freighting, and our kit set campaign was as a result of that. We now just recently acquired environmental product declarations for all our products, and we did this through ThinkStep. The guys in New Zealand were fantastic helping us through, and they're here today. Thank you, guys. This is key for us now, more and more getting into sort of sustainable markets, LED buildings, gold star buildings overseas. They will not take your product if you don't have certification of some sort. And there are a whole lot of different products out there which you can get to give yourself a tick. But I kind of like the EPD most because it's effectively like an ingredients label. It tells you, the consumer, everything about our product, the good, the bad, and the ugly, leaving you to make your own decisions. I'm not making claims which can be undermined or counter-argued against. I'm just saying what we do, and you can make your own judgment. And I think that's an honest, open, fair way to do it. We fund tree planting, both with children and local groups, as a way to offset the carbon we can't otherwise be accountable for. And I also buy carbon credits when I fly overseas. I look after my staff. It was great to hear Alicia talking about Patagonia. That book, Let My People Go Surfing, is my Bible. And I let my people go surfing whenever they want. And I support the local community in a number of different ways. Now, does that make us sustainable? I don't think so.
It makes you honest.
Thank you. Exactly. We can argue semantics for a long time. For me, sustainable means you can do it forever. And I think there's precious little about our world today that we can do forever. So I think we have to be careful about the claims we make. But more than that, I think sustainability is a state of mind. It's not about ticking boxes. An oil company can drill for oil in the Antarctic. They can drill offshore here and still tick all those boxes I showed you. It doesn't make them sustainable. It's about an attitude. For most of my life, or early part of my career, I was a craftsman. And the core essence of craft is doing a job well for the sake of it. You care. You care about the materials you use, how you waste them, how the people use them, the effect those materials have on the user. Craftspeople are not notoriously in it for profit. They're in it because they love what they do and because they care about what they do. Conversely, the oil company doing its drilling cares about profit. Now, you can't blame them for that. That is the basic fundamental nature of capitalism. They have shareholders that they have to pay their dividend to. But I think this is one of the real problems today with capitalism has gone too far. It's now losing connection, it's losing relevance in a world which is moving very fast, and those old values are no longer working. And I think this lack of care and this focus on profit against everything else is one of the reasons that capitalism is failing. Their song, though irresistibly sweet, was no less sad than sweet, and lapped both body and soul in a fatal lethargy, the forerunner of death and corruption. Thus sang the sirens. Today's siren song is growth. The other reason that I think capitalism is failing. Growth. A farmer in 1950 has 100 cows. With a 5% growth, and that's what we would like to have, and if you've got 3% growth, some people say that's a recession. 5% growth, if he's got 100 cows in 1950, by today he's got 2,384. You go forward to 2050, 100 years after you started, he has 13,150 cows. Notice how fast it's grown in that last segment. In the last 35 years, he's added 10,000 cows. That's exponential. Now, if you talk about growth in a material world, that's impossible. We live in a finite planet. We cannot grow like that. We have to get away from this obsession with growth and understand and think more about stability. Europe has been having a declining population for some time, and yet they still obsess about growth. Surely stability is what's more important. And I think the problem is that all our democracies are based on short-term politics. And again, you can't blame them. That's the nature of the system. The politicians there for 3 or 4 or 5 years, they can't take long-term decisions because invariably they're detrimental to the short term, so they'll be voted out. So they take short-term decisions, and the long-term can go stuff itself. And sadly, that's what's happening. So we stumble on, blindly led to the rocks below the sirens, under a system that I think is failing in our current situation with our current populations. Another interesting thing is over sort of recent period of history of humans from the last few thousand years, there's been a massive change in how we relate to our communities. The first Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, their sense of self, of identity, was their tribe. The tribe had to be strong to survive in seriously nasty conditions. In the early Greek civilization, the sense of self was found in your act in the public good, in the political, in the forum, in what you did for the group, the city, the state. Medieval Christians found their sense of self in the cosmic order, in God and Christianity. And the workers of the 19th century, after the Industrial Revolution, had a great strong sense of community built around work. Trade unions and all those industrial cities in northern England had a massive sense of community which went beyond the self. So in all these cases, self was something outside. Your sense of connection, your sense of value in the world was through these outside connections. That's today. Our sense of self is inward. And consumerism needs that. Consumerism needs us to be obsessive about ourselves, to buy more stuff, to make us feel better, because it's very good at making us feel inadequate. So these two, self-obsession and consumerism, feed on each other and create this crazy growth of consumer goods and spending. And it's almost like it's been handed down. I remember way back in I think it was the 80s, Margaret Thatcher said, if you ride in a bus when you're 25, you're a failure. I came in a bus this morning. Thank you, Margaret. The system needs to create failures as your own fault, make it out to be your own fault. And sadly, this is another aspect of this selfishness of our world. We've lost that sense of empathy, of caring about people. And we're handed down this, like our government here today, doesn't really care about welfare or people or prisons. It sees the nation as a business to run for a profit. And that's the same sort of thing you're going to see in Europe and America. But it's easier to blame politicians or bankers or whatever you like to blame. But really, ultimately, it comes back to us. Because we elect those politicians. And I'm really sad today that this country elected John Key again, because he doesn't stand for any of the values that I share. We buy the bigger car. We buy the junk made in the sweatshops in Asia. Only by us stopping it are we going to change that. This is Tempelhof Airport in Berlin, and I love this. This is a really good example of swords being turned into plowshares, because this is where the Nazis used to take off with their bombers to bomb the rest of Europe from, and that's what it is today. Paul Mason in Britain has just written a book called Post-Capitalism, and a review in The Guardian talked about it and said, almost unnoticed, in the niches and hollows of the market system, whole swathes of economic life are beginning to move to a different rhythm. Parallel currencies, time banks, cooperatives, and self-managed spaces have proliferated, barely noticed by the economics profession, and often as a direct result of the shattering of the old structures in the post-2008 crisis. Collaborative production using network technology to produce goods and services that only work when they are free or shared defines the route beyond the market system. None of this features in GDP. So I think that's the way forward, of actually shutting out the pure profit, big business out from our lives and building our communities slowly from bottom up. Being sustainable is not just ticking boxes. It's about caring. It's about a state of mind. And to move away from our exploitative, selfish society, we need to change our mindset. We need to grow our empathy and to care for what makes strong communities, because sustainable means forever. Another aspect of care is beauty. And I have a talk called Beauty Matters, which I've been giving a lot lately. I really think that it's not enough to build a sustainable, environmental, eco-efficient building or product or whatever if it's not also beautiful? Because if it's beautiful, you'll care for it. You'll throw away that trashy plastic coffee cup because it's ugly and you don't care about it. Okay, I'm coming. Oh, it's mine, sorry. How do you stop it? It's not enough to make environmentally sustainable building if it's not beautiful. And if it's beautiful, we'll care for it and love it and look after it. And I think that's really, really important. And that's where art and what we do with our creativity comes in. So that brings me back to that opening slide. This is a bridge in Olympic Park near Seattle in Washington State. If Doc had made that here in New Zealand, it would be made with a helicopter flown in, New Zealand pine, an exotic, nasty invasive species that's been brought into this country, treated with a whole cocktail of nasty cyanides and poisons to build a bridge. In Seattle, they cut a tree down right next to the river. They split it without even any machine tools into this lovely, attractive bridge, which used no power, created no carbon, and they walked across it. That, for me, is the way forward.